Hello, you gorgeous humans, and welcome. Welcome to welcome to a collaboration of understanding and unification in regards to the masculine and the feminine and relationships. I welcome James and Megan. I met James many moons ago. We was united in our love for movement, which forged this relationship, which saw me then connect with Megan and other great humans. Isn't it wonderful how relationships, when created organically and authentically, just blossom into this forest that brings in other amazing people? And so I feel very honored to have James and Megan here. Megan is a best-selling author, master certified intimacy expert and podcast host, while James is world-renowned facilitator who has led 20 plus month long life-changing immersions. They have spent 15 years studying relationships and connection and have helped transform over 700 people's lives. They have held retreats, intensives, and coaching sessions, connecting people back to themselves, to the earth, and to each other. I mean, it's that last bit that makes me want to go, oh, mmm, and say welcome.
That is the best reaction.
Welcome, you beautiful humans. How you doing?
Doing good. Glad to be here, Abby. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So welcome. You're so welcome. We're at a time when we deserve the opportunity to hear and listen to great relationships. I mean, sometimes that can be quite painful for people, can't it? To hear authentic and beautiful relationships when you are not quite in that space yourself. And so this brings me on to a question that I just downloaded before we came onto this space together, and that is, what comes first, relationship to self or relationship to other? Chicken and the egg. Like where does this start?
I think it's such chicken and the egg, right? Because you need both. Like we're humans, we're social species. We're made to have relationships with others, but our relationships with others can only be as deep and meaningful as our relationship with ourselves. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I need to work on myself or fix myself before I get into a relationship. But I think you find yourself through the dance of relationship, and you find deeper and deeper layers of yourself in that dance. So it's not really one or the other or which one comes first, but it's like how the two work together and give you insights from both.
Yeah, I will say that. I'd only add that one of my teachers would say that relationship is the highest form of spiritual growth. And I really get the sense of that. And as Megan was alluding to, you can't really pull them apart. Yes, there is a relationship to self, and yes, there is a relationship to other, but it's not binary as that. It's so intermingled and interlaced.
I love you brought up the fixing side of things, because it seems like we're on this mission, aren't we, to fix everything. Everything is fixed. I mean, but are we really broken? Is it broken? Are we really broken? You could drive yourself mad, couldn't you?
Uh, yeah, I think it's a little bit of an outdated mindset, hopefully outdated, because I think there's a lot of shame in that, right? Like I need to fix myself or heal, or I need to get somewhere before I'm worthy of love. Versus seeing yourself as like, I'm a plant, I'm on a constantly evolving journey to grow and blossom and flower in different and new ways. And there's no state of that flowering which is wrong.
So, how did you both get to this point? Because, I knew James before you were James and Megan. So, how did you both get to, or should I say Megan and James? Again, it's the chicken and the egg, isn't it? What one goes
Or
first?
Jaggy Megan.
Jaggy
Jaggy Megan.
So, how did you get to this point? Because again, James, I knew you when, movement was the passion, it was all there in the movement, and now I see this wonderful collaboration of you both. So yeah, where did this amalgamation come from?
Well, I had started my dive into this work before the moment that I mentioned, and I've gone very, very deeply into it. I even started teaching on it. And then there was just one point where I taught a workshop and it just did not land. And I was speaking to one of my mentors about it while on a retreat. And I just had this realization that I wasn't actually ready to teach it. Like, this was information that a lot of it was new to me, though it felt so right and true. And I realized that I needed some time to integrate it and time to live it before I could even speak to it. So I let it be in the background as principles for my life. And in the foreground for many years was movement and movement practices. And then when I met Meg, because of the study that I've done, she'll talk about her study. We could meet on the same level and speak the same language because I'd spent enough time living in this world of understanding masculine and understanding feminine, at least better than I did before. And from there, Megan actually invited me to speak on one of her retreats. And she'd never heard me speak. She'd never heard me talk on this topic at all. And we came up.
And I just knew he'd be brilliant.
And we spoke together and we did a piece on a retreat and it just felt so natural. And I realized that, at least at this point, there was a certain amount that I could speak to with truth and integrity because I had been living it for a number of years already.
So this brings up so much, because what I feel in regards to relationships now is that there is always a rush, and as human beings we are in this massive rush to actually get to the end of our lives, aren't we? You know, we rush through everything. And there, I love what you said there, James, in regards to, you have learned about this, you know, you appreciated this, you was cultivating this, but there was something there that it wasn't quite right just then. And when Megan came along, it feels like that was the flowering of that understanding and that appreciation, and then the possibility to speak and spread that conversation. Am I on the vibe with that?
Yeah, I could speak to it from experience rather than knowledge. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of information brokers out there. I was one of them, where I'd learn something and then I would teach it without actually spending the time to live into it. And honestly, when it comes to many of these pre-programmed ideas around relationship, whether it's to self or relationship, sex, and intimacy, it takes a fucking long time to sit with this and really change these deep, deep grooves. So it required for me to percolate and sit in the shifts and the changes within my own self. And then by the time I met Megan, it just happened to be a good amount of percolation where I could at least speak to some of it. I'm still percolating on so much of it.
For life.
Info just came on 1 second.
I just want to add, anyone that says the word percolate is just high up on my ladder in my world. Percolate is the best word. I mean, we're past interesting now. That word doesn't really resonate anymore. It's all about the percolation. I totally feel that. It's the best word ever. And it requires, doesn't it, that percolation it requires patience. Percolation requires patience. Try saying that a few times. And understanding, and it gives it more meaning, doesn't it? I totally appreciate that when I speak to women about understanding their true feminine health, and you know, learn about your period. Why do I need to learn about my period? Sometimes I can't even put it into words. The freedom and the liberation that this offers, this relationship to self. It is a relationship with yourself that opens so much. And so stepping into that area of conversation now, you know, relationship of self, where do we go from that? How do we go from that? You know, how do you get people to understand that relationship to themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of my work is helping women understand what they want and their desires, and figuring out and really stopping and slowing down enough to listen, to ask the rebellious question, like, what am I really craving? What is my body asking for? What am I being drawn towards? Because a woman that listens to that is a woman who's unstoppable. Because so often we're shamed to like look outside of ourselves for answers. Like, what should I do? I was just journaling about parenting. You know, should my baby have her own crib by now? Should she eat, you know, a certain amount of solid foods? And I was like, oh no, that's the conditioning. Looking outside myself for an answer instead of being like, wait, what feels right to me in this moment? And then, you know, like our baby co-sleeps with us. That feels great right now. And so that a lot of the work I do is helping women turn from looking outward to looking inward for their own guidance and for their own answers. And a woman who does that, or a man, is unfuckable with.
Mm.
Because there's something really solid and true inside of that.
You know, I totally get that. But having just come off of a march of mothers who are in a position or not in a position where the noise is so loud on the outside that they believe that they don't have a choice to be unfuckable. I think this is where investing in time and space for them is so important, because it's not as easy as that, is it? Once you get to that point, you realize, aha, why did I waste so much bloody time back there? But getting to that point, because we don't understand the vocabulary past that, do we? We know of the angst and the fear. We can totally get addicted to that point in the conversation, but opening that door, we have no idea what's on the other side, and that can be the scariest part. And that's what sees many, humans keep falling backwards, keep slamming that door. So how have you dealt with that? Because is that where you got to? Was there a point where you reached that, or have you dealt with a lot of people that are in that position?
I think for me, I got to a point where I had followed all of the things I thought I should do. So I got good grades and I was valedictorian, and then I went to a good university, and then I got a good job. And then I was, 23, and I had a good job and my circle of friends, and I was on track for success in the very external way. And my parents were proud of me, but I didn't feel anything. Like I was like, I don't feel that alive. Like it doesn't, I don't feel that excited about my life. And I could just see like I can just continue like this for years. And so at that point, I was starting to look around and I'm like, what other ways could you live? And I remember that feeling of like, it feels like my life is on a railroad track. And that's when I met some different intentional communities. I got really involved in orgasmic meditation, learned a lot around female sexuality and the eroticism, and how to bring mindfulness into sexuality. And that was like my life took a left turn there. Because then I started asking in a community that's all also asking this question: what do you want? What's lighting you up? What's turning you on? What is making you feel alive? And how can we trust that over what you've been told you should do? Oh, I got goosebumps just saying that.
Oh, I nearly, the tears came then, because so many women are not feeling. They are just, and men. So it's just because I've spent so much time with women on this march this morning. I see this. We are literally plodding, aren't we? We're plodding along on the same monotone conversation, vibration, not realizing that there is this life force that wants to surge through your body and open your eyes to these fulfilling relationships, these spaces, these places that want you to be more alive, so more alive. But again, the fear of what that can do, because again, we've all been there. Recently speaking to a woman in regards to alcoholism and grey area drinking. Most people don't realize just how addicted they are to alcohol and how this is shutting them down, and the fear of stepping out of that, because everyone, I mean, in the UK, you are not allowed to not think about drinking. It's everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. Everyone does it. Everyone does it to tune out. Apparently, we do it to relax. And the fear of stepping out of that society, out of that huge community, again, is pretty terrifying, isn't it? Coming into those spaces and understanding that there are humans out there that are on the same wavelength with you as you. They want you to be more you. It's just that initial reaching and feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think to your point, that's why community is so important. I could not have changed the way I did unless I found a community that had different values, different ways of living. And I think that's one of the gifts of the teacher trainings that we taught, is like, it's a month of being around people doing things differently. Because I don't think we can change the way that we live without seeing examples and reflections of other ideas, other possibilities.
I mean, for anyone listening, it's great to step into community. If that means jumping online and finding people that are similar, amazing. But if you can go somewhere, whether it's a retreat or a training, just to get out, it's like anything, you know, you get so used to the resonance of the place that you're in, that you don't realize how much of a discord that place has until you step outside of it. Therefore, you don't have a choice. If you step outside of it for long enough to be able to take a look at it and actually hear those tones that feel a little more nourishing, then you can go back and you can choose. And maybe you go back, but you do so consciously, right? But you have a choice rather than letting it just be the status quo.
Yeah. And again, you come back to that belief that there is no choice, or this is the only choice that I have. This is it, isn't it? And you know, a good teacher once said, you don't know what you don't know, Cameron Shane. You don't know what you don't know. And it's when you come and sit with people such as yourselves where you realize, oh my goodness, I didn't know this about life. I didn't know this could be this way. And, you know, looking at you both, this beautiful collaboration of man and woman, masculine and feminine, how do you support each other? How do you bring this together?
Great question.
That's a very good question. I think in a million ways. Some are more obvious than others. The first one that comes up to me, and it could be jumped into at any particular point, is that, you know, I identify as masculine. I hold more of a masculine pole. I can play all the way up into the feminine notes, but I hold more of a masculine pole. Megan is the opposite. This works for our relationship. And what I notice about the feminine system, we can just think of it as the central nervous system, but it's bigger, is that if it has a lot of inputs that are particularly on the masculine, like going someplace, being somewhere, especially with a baby, there's a lot more getting this ready, going somewhere, than trying to do work and then still travel. And the system can get really held and really tight. And it needs some kind of banks to the river to relax somehow. So it's
okay, I can melt, I can let go for a minute. Right? I think that's a real feminine longing.
Totally. And a small way that could happen is if I see that happening in the system, I might just pause whatever I'm doing and take a moment to really hold her, or like touch her in a way that isn't friendship. It isn't like a, oh,
well done, well done.
Exactly. It's like actually bring some real clarity of touch and solidity and a hug or a moment, and something about that, and you'll notice your system will just go and unravel somehow.
Totally.
Which allows her to be more in her feminine, which is more rejuvenating for her.
Yeah.
That.
One other way that you support me, I think, is you help me feel incredibly safe. In that, like, he's very trustworthy. Like, he says what he is going to do, he does it, and he follows through. And that sense of integrity was something that I was looking for and wanting, and I didn't realize the impact it would have on me, which is a real, like, softening of my heart. And like, I feel like I can be more parts of me with you, because you greet different parts of me quick with a lot of space and curiosity and not judgment and criticism. Like, oh, okay, you're feisty today, or oh, you're sad today, you're happy today. And so it seems like there's more space for different sides and different flavors that need to come out and play. And so that's one way. And then one way I think I support you is, well, a few, but one is I think I help you come alive more. So if it were up to James, like, he kind of like do mostly the same things each day, like do the same workout, eat the same foods. And then I'm like, babe, let's go spend a month in Europe, or let's go on an adventure, let's go whitewater rafting, or let's do something, let's have a baby now, or let's have a good wedding with people. And at first he's almost always like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But then he looks back and he's like, that was beautiful. And I think that my feminine desire kind of brings a little more color into my world.
It's true. We're currently on a 3.5 week tour of 4 different countries in Europe with a 1-year-old. I would not have planned it this way out.
But
It's been amazing.
there you go.
I love that. Megan, I just want to bring up a word which I find really curious, is that you spoke of James creating a space of safety for you.
Mm.
Is it really safety, or is it confidence in yourself? Because when I in my mind, having gone through a lot of what I've processed about my personal life and my beliefs, is that there is not safety. Safety is a bit of a misunderstanding, because really you're never safe, and it kind of keeps you in a space that doesn't allow you to move, be bolder, question. But when I am confident, when I'm in a space where someone allows me to be confident in myself, that's when I am more empowered. So yeah, safety,
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It I think, yeah, there could be different words for it. For me, it feels like safety, because when I'm in the world, right, I'm kind of looking at like, I have all these parts of myself that I love and I'm confident in, but I'm looking at like, how much can this person handle of me? Can I bring my rage and my grief to this person? Are they going to collapse? Can I bring my wildness, or will it freak them out? Can I bring my softness and my sensitivity, or will they bulldoze over it?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, I love these parts of me, but I'm not sure that someone else can handle them until I see that they can, and then I can trust it. And I think that's what I'm referring to. So whether you call it whatever, safety or whatever, you can also say he has big enough space for more parts of me to come out and play.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And there's not many people that can do that, is there? I mean, this brings me into the thought process of the world's current sensitivities, and how we are really taught to consider someone else's feelings before we consider our own, at the detriment of how we might be feeling. But if we are emotionally, is intelligent the right way, or is it emotionally stable, we can communicate our needs, our feelings, in a way that isn't dumping on the other person. It is all about us. It's understanding that our emotions are ours, aren't they? We can choose to be offended by someone, we can choose to be triggered by someone, but actually that's our own processing. What do you feel about that, especially in regards to relationships? Because you see this, don't you? When you're spending so much time with someone, when you are really in love with someone, and they can say something and it feels like they've just crushed you, but that's really a door for you to walk through and to learn more about yourself.
Yeah, it's true. I know, I was just coaching a client. I think I can share this. I'll keep it general, but I was just coaching a client on this, and she would come to her partner with an idea or a desire. Like, hey, I want to get this pot plant, or I want to get this purple coat. And he would say things like, ooh, I'm not sure that color looks good on you, or I'm not sure about that. And she would just be crushed. And we started the call, and she's like, how do I get him to be more supportive? And I was like, well, he's not in this coaching session, right? And so my aim is not to get him to be more supportive, because we can. And you can say, like, it hurts when you do that. And you can ask for, would you be more gentle with me? But ultimately, what I'm coaching her around is like, how do you stay solid and centered inside of yourself, even if your partner is insensitive in that moment? Because that's the thing you have control over. So yeah, that's where we went with that conversation.
What are your thoughts on that, James?
I think, at least from the work that I do with men and the work that I have done, probably the biggest thing that men could really value from learning is to increase the capacity of the system to hold energy. Now, that's a very broad and semi-esoteric statement, but because the feminine is this wild ball of everything, you know, it's happy one moment, forceful another moment, sad another moment, the energy, not necessarily the person. And the masculine tends to be more stable and calm and centered. And because we live in a very masculine world, then that chaos of the feminine, we're not taught how to be with it. We're taught that it's silly and illogical. So that she's just being crazy. She's just having her period. Whatever the thing might be, it's blamed as that. But we're not actually taught to appreciate it like we might appreciate the power of a waterfall. Like it's sunny, 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 and suddenly it's pouring down rain. We don't look at the sky and go, why is it raining again? This is crazy. Why is it raining today?
It was sunny
yesterday. It's probably going to be sunny tomorrow. Why are you so stormy, sky? We don't do that when it comes to the weather, but it's the same essential force. So the ability to train with men their capacity to hold energy of their partner, particularly when that energy has been directed at them, without collapsing, without being crushed, I think is the main key for most men.
There is so much to download in that. So much. So where do you go from the beginnings of a relationship? I mean, you guys, as an example, you know, again, I've seen this beautiful blossoming and the marriage and the birth. It's been wonderful, you know, intuitive, right? Listening to the intuitive voices within to guide you. But I feel that a lot of that intuition is so lost, like I said earlier, but with this noise, there's so much noise around us telling us what we should be doing, how we should be living. How, you know, how do we get back to that intuitive voice?
Yeah. The work of a lifetime. But I'm thinking, I know, right? I mean, but I help clients with, I practice it every day. It's ongoing. But I think it starts small with just asking, like, what do I want now? What do I want? Like right now, I want some more water, and I might want to walk in the sunshine. And then like continuing to ask, like, what do I want now? And what do I want now? In the little moments, so that you build this self-trust that you know what's best for yourself when the big moments come. Like, should I quit my job or should I marry him? Because you've already have a habit of starting to trust yourself in little moments and little decisions. And then I think, I mean, you're an expert on this, but the body, just like tuning deeper into the sensations of things. One of the skills I teach women is like, when you think of something, does it feel like your heart and your chest, everything gets soft and open and gooey and warm? Or does it feel like everything gets tight and closed and cold and tense? Because the first is probably a yes and the second is probably a no, and that's trustworthy. And then the other one I'll just say is being around people that do this, so that you have examples and reflections of like how they're making decisions and how they're trusting themselves, even when they can't explain why or it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. Noise and options come from mind, and truth tends, for me at least, to come from body. And for me, mostly in my gut. And there are subtleties to it, but you can think about it like this, and maybe it's even an example people listening can think of. If you think of a food that you really don't like, like imagine a food, and in your mind's eye, you imagine holding it to your nose and smelling
it.
Yeah, it could be red herring, could be anything. You bring it to your mouth and you take a bite and you really imagine it, and then you notice all the way down the front surface of your body what happens. Your body tends to have a reaction even before the mind comes in. And then you can let that go and then imagine the opposite. So whether it's chocolate or strawberries or whatever it is, something that you absolutely love, and you imagine smelling and imagine tasting that and feel how your body is. Now, at a body level, it's the same with any big decision in your life, but the noise of the mind tends to get in the way. So the more you can come back to the body, the sensation, imagining the decision that you're making, both of them, the one you think could be right or could be wrong, and all the ones in between. What does it feel like from a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? in your body, and come back to the subtle ways of trusting that.
And I will say one caveat to this too. Sometimes the right choice doesn't feel relaxing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like full on energy circuits running through your body, your cheeks are blushing, your heart is racing, and it feels terrifying. But it's actually the thing that makes you feel more alive. And the other option maybe makes you feel kind of dead in or small. So it may not just be like relaxing on a summer day. It might be a little more high voltage.
So I feel that a lot of people have this misunderstanding when it comes to ending relationships, right? We don't like ending a relationship for many reasons. What are your thoughts on that? You know, because it's painful, isn't it? Whether you know this relationship needs to end or not, you know, that the practice of letting go is a painful one, because you know we're so afraid of death, aren't we? Of the death of anything, that we end up holding on to these relationships that, you know, we are literally carrying them, and it is using every amount of energy that we have, which then makes the rest of life feel like a struggle, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it pertains to exactly what you're just saying, so I can say something first. In my previous relationship, I did this very simple process. I imagined being with my partner at the time a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I really made it real. And I noticed 3 different centers. And in my mind, there were all of these reasons that we were really good together. There's some that weren't, but mainly all of the reasons, like check boxes of things that we had in common. My heart, when I really tuned into it, I felt there was love there. When I really tune into my heart, that's generally what there is. When I felt into my gut, my center, or my dantian, about 5 years from now, or a year from now, it was just twisted in knots. It was just so tight. And like, I couldn't imagine a future with that person without this feeling in my gut. And despite the mind's checklist and the heart's loving, I went with that. Because I knew that there was no arguing with that. That was just truth. Now, when I was early on with Megan and I was doing the same thing, my center, every time I've done it, even if my mind has had questioning and doubts, has been relaxed and soft. If I imagine 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, it's open.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it also is important to know yourself here. So some people tend to leave too quick, like the relationship gets deep and you touch something and then they get freaked out and it's like, I gotta get out of here, this is too much. Other people stay too long and they really want to make it work, and they drain all their energy into making work and trying to get their partner to change, and really they would have been better off leaving earlier. And so knowing what's your tendency is really helpful. And yeah, that's all. My tendency is definitely I think to stay a little too long and to really want to make it work. And I think that's true for a lot of women. And so the question I would ask people if they're thinking about ending a relationship is like getting reflections from friends on who they're becoming inside of this relationship. So do they seem more vibrant, more bright, more themselves? Or is their light dimming? Are they becoming smaller, more apologetic, more disconnected from who they are inside of the relationship? And sometimes it's hard to see in yourself. So if you're brave, getting reflections from friends can be really helpful around that.
Yeah. And you know, my own experiences is with relationships is how we can carry that ancestrally, you know, that blueprint from our mothers and our grandmothers, and how it is so easy to absorb that into our own relationships, and understanding that you don't have to carry that. I think it's been a real eye-opener for me, you know, a bit of a game changer for me. And obviously the impression that I want to leave for my children in regards to relationships. What's an impression that you would love to leave your child or children, um, that maybe you didn't get when you was growing up?
Great question.
reminds me of what you said the other day. You may have heard this, but children grow in the spaces between the parents.
Mm.
And I love this. So that's the way to think of it for me, is like, what's the space that I want to create? And I think I had a lot of acceptance from my parents when I was growing up for what I wanted to do. But I would love more, I would love to instill more trust in self for Lila. Like, and it's small ways. Like, we've let her pick out which top she wants to wear, or pants she wants to wear since she was a month old.
Yeah.
You know, like just by holding up and seeing which eyes last. And it's really sweet to give her this opportunity to trust her own choices without overly indulging in what other people think or other people say. Just coming back to yourself. That's what I love to. That's a space I'd love to create for her.
I love that.
Yeah, I think so. When I was little, my parents got divorced when I was 3. And I think that fueled a lot of my interest in long-term love and the question, what does it take to sustain a long-term relationship? And the thing I would want to leave her with is that you can trust love, that it can last forever, but that it's constantly changing. So that there's space in the relationship for me to change, for James to change, for our marriage to change. Our celebrant said at our wedding, inside this one marriage, you will have many marriages. And I think about that, and I think about how we dance and let each other change throughout our relationship. And I would want her to feel that in her relationships, that she has space to be herself and to keep growing and discovering and evolving, and to stay curious about her partner and who her partner is. Yeah. And then the same to you. I just want her to feel so comfortable with who she is. I tell her, I'm like, you know, whoever you want to get married, you're a girl now, but maybe you want to be a boy later. Maybe you're non-binary. Who knows? Today I'm dressing you in pink, but tomorrow you'll wear blue. And, you know, I just want her to feel like anything she wants to do is okay.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much for joining me on this conversation, which I feel could go on forever, couldn't it, really? I mean, it's just an open conversation, and I hope that you will come back again to take this further. I will share James and Megan's details if you want to contact them. I know that they are so open to discussing relationships and how they can support you. So please don't be shy. No question is too big or too small. But once again, thank you so much, James. Thank you so much, Megan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much,
for
Abby.
having us.